The clatter of polished heels echoed through the marble-floored lobby of the Ravenwood Corporation. Eleanor Ward, CEO and daughter of the company's late founder, walked with her usual mix of authority and exhaustion. At 42, she had mastered the art of commanding boardrooms and cutting million-dollar deals. What she hadn't mastered was motherhood, not in the way she wanted. Her 7-year-old twins, Ava and Noah, had been born deaf. Doctors had explained their condition with sympathetic smiles, offering implants, therapy, and countless appointments. Eleanor had agreed to most, but the truth weighed heavy: she didn't know how to reach them. Between board meetings and mergers, her communication with her children felt clinical: signs taught by tutors, schedules run by nannies. Love existed, but it had walls of silence she couldn't break through. This Friday evening, Eleanor had insisted on bringing the twins to the office. She wanted to spend the weekend with them, a rare decision for a woman whose life was dictated by the relentless demands of her company. Her assistant had set up a play area in the corner of the staff lounge, filled with books and puzzles. The twins sat there quietly, communicating in rapid hand movements with each other, their giggles soundless but visible in their faces. Eleanor watched them from her office glass wall, heart tugging with guilt. She wanted to join them, but didn't know how. Instead, she buried herself in a report. Then she heard something strange, an irregular beat echoing down the hallway. It wasn't the polished sound of high heels or the muffled murmur of late-working employees. It was rhythmic, raw, and oddly joyful. Thump, thump tap, thump thump tap. She frowned, stood up, and followed the noise. It led her to the staff kitchen. There, under the fluorescent lights, stood Daniel, the night janitor. A man in his mid-50s, slightly stooped from years of work, with graying hair tucked under a cap. Instead of cleaning, he had lined up 3 empty plastic buckets of different sizes. He sat on a stool, drumsticks in hand, playing them like a makeshift drum kit. But what stopped Eleanor cold wasn't Daniel's unusual pastime, it was the sight of her twins. Ava and Noah were right there in the kitchen, eyes wide, laughing silently but completely alive in a way she hadn't seen before. Their small hands mirrored the beat, clapping, tapping, stomping in rhythm. They weren't hearing the sound, of course not. But they felt it. The vibrations of the buckets on the tiled floor traveled straight through their shoes and bones. They were dancing to a song they couldn't hear but fully understood. Eleanor froze at the doorway, breath caught in her chest. Daniel glanced up, surprised to see her, but didn't stop playing. Instead, he nodded at the twins, encouraging them. Ava placed her palms on the largest bucket, eyes lighting up as it thrummed against her skin. Noah stomped harder, giggling in silent bursts. For the first time in years, Eleanor saw her children unshackled from silence, connected. Not to her, but to the janitor. To music they couldn't hear but could feel. Something inside her cracked. She pressed her hand against her lips, holding back unexpected tears. Daniel slowed the rhythm, let it fade, then handed the sticks to Ava. She looked up at him, waiting for approval. He smiled and showed her how to hit the rim for a sharper vibration. Noah copied with his hands. Eleanor stepped forward, finally finding her voice. What is happening here? Daniel looked at her calmly, as if the answer was obvious. They're playing music, ma'am. Just, in their own way. And for the first time, Eleanor wondered if she had been looking at silence all wrong. That evening, I told Liam and Emma about the janitor who made music with nothing but a bucket. They looked intrigued, tilting their heads in unison. I hesitated, unsure how they would react to the idea of rhythm they couldn't hear. But to my surprise, their eyes lit up. We returned the next day after school, sneaking into the office to watch Maria again. She smiled at the 3 of us immediately, her hands moving with grace, tapping, clapping, and using her body to create vibrations. Maria noticed the twins' curiosity. She knelt beside them, her eyes sparkling with understanding. She began to show them how to feel the beat through vibrations. She tapped the bucket, placing their hands on it. Slowly, their small fingers began to move in sync with her rhythm. Their faces mirrored amazement as they realized that sound wasn't just in the air, it could be felt. I watched, almost holding my breath, as they discovered a new way to experience the world. Maria didn't speak much, she didn't have to. Her hands, her body, and the bucket communicated everything. It was a language I had never known, one that my children were beginning to understand instinctively. The Ravenwood Corporation's executive lounge had never known the sound of laughter, or at least, the silent kind that came from two children stomping on tiled floors while plastic buckets rattled under their hands. By the third evening, the staff had grown accustomed to the unusual sight, the CEO, usually sharp and untouchable, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her twins, drumming away with wooden sticks. And Daniel, the janitor, guiding them with patience like a music teacher in disguise. Eleanor's hands were awkward at first, her rhythm stiff and uneven. But Ava and Noah didn't mind. They beamed every time she struck her bucket, cheering with rapid signs. Again, Mom, faster, Ava signed, her small fingers a blur. Eleanor squinted, trying to keep up. Sweat prickled at her forehead, strands of hair falling loose from her usually perfect bun. She laughed, an unguarded sound that startled even her. Daniel tapped lightly on his bucket to steady them. Don't think too much, he said. Feel it in your bones. That's how the twins know where the beat is. Eleanor closed her eyes and struck again, this time not counting in her head but letting the rhythm guide her. The vibrations hummed through her palms, into her chest, until, surprisingly, it felt like music. The twins followed her lead, stomping in unison. The floor became their stage, the kitchen their concert hall. Something remarkable was happening. Eleanor, who had always struggled to bridge the silence, was building a new language with her children, not with words, but with rhythm. Dash dash dash. After the session, Eleanor lingered as Daniel packed up the buckets. You've been with this company a long time? She asked. 18 years, Daniel replied, stacking the stools. Mostly nights. Folks don't notice me much. Eleanor tilted her head. Why stay so long? Daniel shrugged. It's honest work. Pays the bills. And sometimes, he glanced toward the twins, who were still drumming idly, you get moments like this. She studied him, curious. He was a janitor, yet there was something about him that unsettled her assumptions. He spoke with the calm wisdom of a man who'd lived more than he revealed. You never thought of doing something with music? She asked. His smile faded slightly. Life doesn't always give you choices, ma'am. Eleanor wanted to ask more, but the weight in his tone warned her not to pry. Instead, she offered, my children, they don't respond to anyone the way they do to you. You've given them something priceless. Daniel shook his head. No, ma'am, they already had it. I just showed them where to look. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of Lily humming upstairs. The sunlight streaming through the cracked windows made the night's events feel almost unreal. Almost. But when he saw the journal still lying on the table, the unease returned in full force. He needed answers. After breakfast, cereal eaten with mismatched spoons, Ethan led Lily outside to gather firewood, trying to act normal. She skipped through the grass, her laughter bright against the quiet forest, but Ethan's eyes kept drifting to the driveway, half expecting that black SUV to return. By afternoon, curiosity gnawed at him too much to ignore. When Lily settled down for her nap, he crept back to the basement. The air was different this time, cooler, heavier, almost charged. Dust motes drifted like tiny sparks in the beam of his flashlight. He approached the chest again, setting aside the books and coins until he reached the very bottom. That's when he noticed it, a slab of stone half buried in the floor, etched with the same strange symbols as the necklace. Kneeling, Ethan brushed away the dirt. The carvings spiraled inward, forming a pattern that made his eyes ache if he stared too long. He pressed his hand against it. Warm. The stone was warm. He jerked back, heart racing. A memory from the journal surfaced. It is a door. Some doors must remain closed. Ethan whispered, what are you? A faint hum rose in the silence, so soft he thought he imagined it. But then it grew, vibrating under his palm when he touched the stone again. The entire basement seemed to breathe, alive with an ancient pulse. Footsteps pattered above. Lily's voice rang out. Daddy, where are you? Ethan scrambled to cover the slab with dirt and crates before she could come down. He met her halfway up the stairs, forcing a smile. Just checking for leaks, kiddo. She tilted her head. It sounded like singing. The words froze him. Singing. Lily nodded innocently. Like, the floor was humming a lullaby. She squeezed her rabbit closer. But it wasn't scary. It was kind of pretty. Ethan's stomach twisted. She could hear it too. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Ethan sat on the porch, staring into the endless woods. His thoughts churned. Was this treasure really money? Or was it something much older, much more dangerous? And if it was, why was his daughter drawn to it? A twig snapped in the darkness. Ethan's head shot up. Shadows moved between the trees, more than one figure, their outlines too deliberate to be animals. He grabbed the rusted axe leaning against the wall, heart hammering. Whoever they were watching. Waiting. The journal's warning echoed in his mind. If I fall, may the one who follows understand, guard it. Or the world will pay the price. Ethan tightened his grip on the axe. He hadn't just bought a $1 cabin. He had inherited a responsibility, one that strangers were already willing to fight for. And under the floor, the humming stone pulsed louder, as though aware its time was coming. Mark walked into work Monday evening with a knot in his stomach. Claire's words about her condition had been replaying in his mind all weekend. He wanted to protect her, but he knew there were limits to what he could do. He was just a janitor. She was a Whitmore. Their worlds weren't supposed to intertwine. Yet, somehow, they already had. That night, as he finished waxing the floor near her room, Claire called him inside. She was sitting up in bed, a folder open on her lap. Her face looked pale, but her eyes were sharp, determined. "Mark," she began carefully, "there's something you deserve to know." He frowned. "What is it?" She hesitated, then handed him the folder. Inside were medical records, photographs, and documents he didn't understand at first. But then he saw a name. His name. "Why is my name in here?" Mark asked, his voice tight. Claire swallowed hard. "Because you're connected to me in ways you don't realize. Your wife, your ex, Anna Jennings. She worked for my family's company years ago. In the research division." Mark's chest constricted. "Anna, the woman who had abandoned him and Ethan 12 years ago. What does that have to do with you?" Claire's hands trembled as she spoke. "Anna wasn't just an employee. She was working on the very same genetic study that revealed my illness. She knew about me. About my condition. And she disappeared around the same time I was diagnosed." Mark shook his head in disbelief. "No. That doesn't make sense." "It does," Claire said softly. "She had access to information no one else did. Information about me, my treatment, even my identity. I don't think she just left your family, Mark. I think she left because she was hiding something bigger." Mark dropped into the chair beside her bed, stunned. "Are you saying my ex-wife had something to do with you?" "Yes," Claire whispered, "and possibly with why my condition isn't improving, no matter what treatment I receive. There are gaps in the research, missing files, that only someone inside the company could have taken. My doctors believe those files could hold the key to saving my life." Mark rubbed his temples, his pulse racing. It was too much to take in. All these years, he had believed Anna simply walked out because she didn't want the responsibility of being a mother. But what if the truth was darker? Claire reached for his hand. "Mark, I didn't tell you this to hurt you. I told you because you're the only one I trust. And I think Ethan deserves to know the truth about his mother." The mention of his son made Mark's throat tighten. Ethan had spent years asking why his mom left, and Mark never had an answer. Now, suddenly, there was a possibility, one tied to secrets, corporations, and Claire's very survival. Before Mark could respond, the door burst open. 2 men in suits entered, their expressions grim. "Miss Whitmore," one of them said firmly, "your family requests no further discussion of private matters with staff." Their eyes locked onto Mark with suspicion. Claire straightened her shoulders, defiance flickering across her face. "He's not just staff. He saved my life." But the men didn't budge. "Miss, this is not negotiable." Mark stood, his protective instincts flaring. He wanted to argue, but one look from Claire stopped him. "Go," she whispered. "Please." For now. Reluctantly, Mark left the room, but his mind was already racing. For years, he had buried his pain about Anna. Now it was clawing its way back to the surface, tied to Claire's fate. And for the first time, he wondered, had his son's mother betrayed more than just their family? By midnight, Ethan had armed every lock on the cabin, stacked firewood against the back door, and kept the axe within reach. Lily slept upstairs, curled into a ball, but even in sleep she seemed to sense the unease that blanketed the place. The headlights returned. This time 3 vehicles rolled up the dirt road, engines low and steady. Ethan's heart pounded as he crouched by the window. Men spilled out, 6, maybe 7, carrying gear that didn't look like camping supplies. Black duffel bags, cases that could have held tools, or weapons. They didn't rush the cabin. Instead, they set up lanterns at the tree line, pitching themselves like they owned the place. The same tall man from before stepped forward, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Mr. Walker, last chance. Come out, Sign the papers, take the money. Otherwise, you'll force us to take the cabin by other means. Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't answer. Then, as though responding to the threat, the floor beneath him began to vibrate. The hum deepened into a low, resonant thrum that rattled the dishes in the kitchen. Ethan froze, fear rising in his chest, but not just fear. The sound was calling. Lily's small voice floated down the stairs, "Daddy." She stood there in her pajamas, eyes glazed, as if drawn by the sound. "It wants me," she whispered, her voice not quite her own. Ethan's blood turned to ice. "No, sweetheart, stay back." He scooped her into his arms, but she squirmed, reaching toward the floorboards. The journal's words flashed in his mind. "It is a door. Some doors must remain closed." He dropped her onto the couch gently and snatched up the journal, flipping desperately through pages. Finally he found it, an entry near the end. "The stone is not gold, nor silver. It is a seal. What lies beneath is older than man. The symbols hold it shut. The hum grows when it stirs, when it senses weakness above. Should the seal be broken, the earth itself will remember what it buried. I alone cannot hold it forever. To whoever inherits this place, guard it, even with your life." Ethan slammed the book shut, his chest heaving. A seal. A prison. The men outside began moving closer, their lanterns bobbing. The tall man shouted again, "Open the door, Walker. You don't know what you're guarding. We do, and we're the only ones who can control it." But Ethan could hear the lie in his voice. Control. No. These men didn't want to contain it, they wanted to use it. The cabin shuddered, dust raining from the rafters. Lily clutched her rabbit and whispered, "Daddy, it's singing louder." "I think it's scared." Ethan knelt by her, cupping her face. "Listen to me, Bug. No matter what happens, you stay behind me. Promise." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. He grabbed the axe, stood tall, and looked at the floor as the hum swelled into a roar. The men outside were coming. And so was whatever waited beneath the stone.